Good morning. I'm Stephanie Shearholtz from NASA's Office of Communications. We're here at the Johnson Space Center today to provide an exciting update about the future of human spaceflight. On September 16, 2014, NASA announced its selection of Boeing and SpaceX to develop systems that will transport astronauts to and from the International Space Station from the United States on American spacecraft. Here today to share more details about the Commercial Crew Program's path forward are NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, Johnson Space Center Director Dr. Ellen Ochoa, Commercial Crew Program Manager Kathy Leaders, Vice President and General Manager of Boeing Space Exploration John Elbon, President and Chief Operating Officer of SpaceX Gwen Shotwell, and NASA astronaut Mike Fink. Following opening remarks from each, we'll answer questions from reporters in the room and on the phone. Those following on social media can ask questions using the hashtag AskNASA. Let's begin with Dr. Ellen Ochoa, the director here at Johnson Space Center, who is also a veteran of 4 space shuttle flights.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody to Johnson Space Center today and the opportunity to hear from NASA and Boeing and SpaceX about the path forward to getting a U.S. commercial capability to take our astronauts to and from the International Space Station. And when we have that capability, we'll also be able to double the research that we can get done on the International Space Station, which is a unique microgravity laboratory and is both a national asset and also provides benefit to all people here on Earth. I don't believe any community could be more invested in the success of this program than we are here at Johnson Space Center. We're the home of the International Space Station program, which is the customer for these services. We're the home of the astronauts who will fly on these systems. We work closely with Kennedy Space Center on this program, and we use expertise at both of these centers. At KSC, it's often in landing, launch, and recovery operations, and here at Johnson Space Center, we use our expertise in human-rated spacecraft design and development, human health and performance in space, and of course, flight operations, including training. And in fact, what you see beside us here is a training mock-up of the International Docking Adapter, which will be used to connect commercial crew vehicles to the International Space Station program. Incidentally, this hardware was built by Boeing, and it's going to be taken up later this year on a SpaceX Dragon cargo vehicle. And on board, we are preparing for a series of spacewalks and robotics maneuvers that over the course of this year will lead to the installation of the International Docking Adapter. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the NASA Administrator, Charlie Bolden.
Shucks, that was too quick. I thought I had a few more minutes to sit over there and ponder. For those of you who are looking online or on a phone or something else, I've got a great audience out here. We've got, I don't know, shucks, maybe a third of the astronaut office, and they're all I told them earlier today they were looking grim, but some of them are smiling now, but I'm going to tell them later they better start smiling. But thanks, Ellen, for introducing me, and it's great for me to be down here. It's always good to come back home to JSC. Ellen, you and your team are doing what an outstanding job to help keep the United States of America the world's leader in space exploration. I can't thank you enough for all that you're doing to help us make progress on our ambitious journey to Mars. And although we're talking about Commercial Crew today, I don't want anybody to lose sight of the fact that all this we're doing is so that it will enable us to eventually get humans to Mars. That's what this whole thing's about. Probably not for you folk, or not some of the older ones down there, but it's for my granddaughters. I have 3 granddaughters, so I'm doing, come on. Tracy was giving me a hard time back there, but I have 3 granddaughters. I think people have heard me say that before, so in my mind, I'm doing this for them. So thank you all for helping me get them to Mars, all right? I'm also delighted to be here today with our American industry partners, Boeing and SpaceX. John and Gwen, thanks for taking your time and coming here, spending some time with the crew earlier today. And the NASA team that's here, represented by some of the flight directors and flight controllers. We've been working overtime to return space launches to U.S. soil and end our sole reliance on Russians to get to the International Space Station. These American companies, who are pioneers and trailblazers in their own right, are developing new systems to take our astronauts, the men and women in this room today, to low Earth orbit. It's an incredible testament to American ingenuity and know-how, and an extraordinary validation of the vision we laid out just a few years ago as we prepared for the long-planned retirement of the space shuttle. The decision to retire the space shuttle, made in 2004 following the Columbia Accident Review Board, was a very difficult one, particularly for me, since I was the guy that came to the agency when we decided that we really were going to go do that. Shuttle had an amazing 30-year run, and those of you here at JSC and at NASA centers all across the nation played a critical role in its success. When I took office as the NASA administrator, I vowed to not only make sure we safely flew out the shuttle as planned, but also ensure that we were launching our astronauts again on American-made spacecraft from U.S. soil as soon as possible. Today, we're here to talk about the realization of that goal and to talk about the hard work of those who made it happen. This initiative didn't happen by chance. It was the result of hard work, grit, and determination by a joint NASA industry partnership, and it was the result of strong leadership by the President, who refused to accept that the greatest nation on Earth should be dependent on others to get into space. So with President Obama leading the charge to open up low Earth orbit to the private sector, and with the kind of skill and experience that only the NASA team can bring to the table, we worked with American industry to return cargo resupply launches to U.S. soil. And now we prepare to do the same for our crewed missions. Your work is part of a vital strategy to equip our nation with the technologies for the future and inspire a new generation of explorers to take the next giant leap for America. As you work to advance us on our journey to Mars, you're helping to spur innovation and economic growth, expand U.S. leadership in space, and make possible breakthroughs in science and technology. The contracts we've signed with our industry partners, Boeing and SpaceX, are vivid examples of American innovation at work. We've seen the return of an American launch industry and the insourcing of work and jobs back to U.S. shores. Our reliance on a commercial space enterprise, where we hand off low Earth orbit transportation to the private sector, is critical to our journey to Mars. With our private sector partners carrying cargo and astronauts to the International Space Station, we can focus on testing the systems and technologies needed to develop Orion and the Space Launch System to take us to the proving ground of cislunar space and on to Mars and beyond. Those parallel flight programs are intertwined and essential to all our work going forward. The support of Congress for these efforts has been critical, offering bipartisan agreement on our journey to Mars. Their continued support, especially to fully fund these commercial crew contracts, will be even more important as we prepare to once again launch American astronauts from U.S. soil. President Obama's decision last year to extend the space station to at least 2024 means that this orbiting laboratory will be our springboard to the rest of the solar system for at least another decade, allowing us to continue using it to make breakthroughs in research and technology. The station has helped facilitate the growth of a commercial market in low Earth orbit for scientific research and technology development, as well as cargo and crew transportation. Before I conclude, I know the rest of you are here, but I want to say a couple of words, a few words to my fellow astronauts here. And I hope you're not offended because I say that. Somebody tells me all the time, once an astronaut, always an astronaut. I know better. I'm a used-to-be astronaut. But anyway, I want to talk to you all because this is really important, and it's the big reason that we came down here when I talked to Bob Behnken last week about coming down. You know, we've had astronauts living and working in space for more than 14 years. We're planning for the first ever year-long ISS increment with the launch of Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko. And we're taking the most concrete steps ever to advance humans to Mars. Many of you, when you were kids, when I was here in the program, when you were kids, probably dreamed of going to Mars. When I was your age, I dreamed of going to Mars. When I came here in 1980, I dreamed of going to Mars, and that was my plan. I was going to go to the moon for a couple of flights maybe, and then on to Mars. And things didn't work out that way. People always say, we're 20 years from going to Mars. Well, guess what? I think we're on the verge of breaking the 20-year barrier. We're about to go under the 20-year mark, and a lot of it is due to what you all have done and what you continue to do. And so it's an incredibly exciting time to be a part of the space program, and even more exciting to be an American astronaut. That's why I tell you to smile, okay? You're the luckiest people in the world. So don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, be attentive to details and make sure that we don't screw anything up. But man, just suck it up and enjoy this. You are where millions of other people would love to be. It's an incredible time to be where you are. With the full support of our safety, engineering, and ground teams, you'll travel to the space station on new American systems that were developed thanks to the pioneering efforts of the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Skylab, and Shuttle programs. You are standing on the shoulders of giants, not me included, okay, but real giants from our earlier programs. And you are a part of the team that will push the boundaries of exploration and one day reach the planet that has eluded us for generations, Mars. Although I've already had the privilege to fly in space 4 times, I can tell you that, because I was asked this question earlier, I would hop on a Dragon or a CST-100 capsule in a heartbeat. And I hope my wife Jackie is not listening to this, because she probably has other ideas. But in other words, I'm incredibly envious of all of you. Peggy, I look down there at you and you know, I mean this. I am envious of you all and where you are. You're being given an awesome responsibility, however, to represent our nation on the journey to Mars. And together, that's now our challenge to inspire our nation and the world to believe in the dream of extending human presence farther into our solar system than ever before. I pledge my support, and I wish you Godspeed. Thanks to all of you, every single one of you here at JSC and at all NASA centers across the country, and to the contractors also, because we're all a team in this. Thanks to all of you who are with us today. And I truly hope that you'll continue to join with us in supporting this noble endeavor. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie, and I think Stephanie's going to bring everybody else up. I told Mike Fink he could talk forever, by the way, because you all were here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Administrator. Now we'll hear from the woman who is leading this initiative, Commercial Crew Program Manager Kathy Leaders, who also previously managed the International Space Station's Commercial Cargo Resupply Program.
So, wow, I can't tell you how happy I am to be here today. You know, it's great to be able to finally talk openly about what the Commercial Crew Program is doing and give you some more specifics about the contracts. You know, we've been in blackout for the past year while the procurement was ongoing, and then with the protest, we were limited with really the details of the contract and the information that we could give you. So the Commercial Crew Program got a little bit of a late Christmas present on January 5th. We were very happy to see that the GAO had ruled in NASA's favor and that we could put the protests behind us. So now we would like the opportunity to really tell you about the critical work that our partners are doing to deliver the next commercial crew transportation system to the ISS. So you've heard us talk a lot about the importance of the certification activities and the importance of flying our crews to the International Space Station from U.S. soil. But as Ellen was speaking about before, there's another very important characteristic that the new commercial crew capability provides for the International Space Station. When we are flying, well, when Boeing and SpaceX are flying our 4 crews, the International Space Station crew will be able to double the amount of science it's able to do during a crew week. While right now there's about 40 hours a week that's dedicated to science and research. After SpaceX and Boeing are flying our 4 crew, that amount can go up to 80 hours a week. So that's a huge accomplishment with this new transportation capability. In addition, the critical powered cargo that SpaceX and Boeing are going to be flying up to space station and returning back from the space station will be handed over in the shortest amount of time ever to allow the zero-G effects to be still found within the research environment. So this program and the partners have come a long way. The program's been working on how best to figure out how to certify these systems, while our partners have been doing the hard work of doing the subsystem design and testing, system level planning to buy down the risk to the certification activities. And this partnership approach to Commercial Crew is really paying off in very big ways. Most importantly, the contract really allowed these companies to propose their approach to how they're going to deliver their certified systems and move on to post-certification missions to the International Space Station. Within the contract, we set it up where there were 5 NASA-required certification milestones, but then Boeing and SpaceX were able to come up with their own strategy to add milestones to better help their funding profile and show progress on their certification tasks. So both Boeing and SpaceX have already finished their first certification baseline milestone. This is a critical milestone because it really helps us be able to understand what is their long-term plan for certification. Yet the focus of our NASA involvement is not just on these milestones that I'm talking about. It's on the day-to-day work that we do with NASA, between NASA and SpaceX and Boeing, for us to really understand what they're doing with their systems. And we know both of our partners are committed to proving out their systems and showing that they're meeting our safety and performance requirements. Both Boeing and SpaceX have committed to flying both an uncrewed and a crewed mission to the International Space Station. And we appreciate how they've stepped up to this challenge. We would not be here today without these companies, Boeing and SpaceX, accepting this tremendous task, even though they know the path forward is hard and will have bumps in it, and as every human spaceflight program has experienced. So you may have heard that during STS-135, we flew an American flag. And the intent was for that flag to be brought home on the first commercial crew system that went to the ISS. But you know what? We're going to be flying another flag, because when we have both of those flags on the ground with the crew that they brought home safely, we will all be winners. So as an engineer, the exciting part of this is when hardware finally shows up. And I know that there's paths out there being developed and upgraded, and I know that there's hardware out there that's being delivered, and I know that there's processing facilities out there that are processing our hardware. And I know that one day, soon, we will be flying our crews from Florida to the International Space Station. I can't wait for that day. And I know a few other folks on the podium are right here with me can't wait for that day either. So I probably need to get off and let them start talking. Thank you.
Thank you. Here to tell us more about the CST-100 and Boeing's crew transportation system is Vice President and General Manager of Boeing Space Exploration, John Elbon. In this role, he is responsible for all 3 of Boeing's space programs at NASA: Commercial Crew, the International Space Station, and the Space Launch System.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning. Thanks, Ellen, Charlie, Kathy, for having us here today. It's an exciting day. I think it's really cool. Ellen alluded to this, that we have the ISS as a backdrop here. These programs are clearly intertwined. She mentioned that the International Docking Adapter was turned over last week, actually. It will fly on Gwen's spaceship later this year. So it's just really a comment about how ISS and our companies are all intertwined to make this happen. Big deal. I know we're here to talk about Commercial Crew today, but I wanted to give one more point of context. Even though we aren't flying the shuttle, I don't think there is a time in history when there's been more development of spaceflight hardware ongoing or exciting things that are happening. ISS is operating. It's returning incredible science, and we're continuing to do development work to upgrade ISS. We mentioned commercial cargo, and of course we're talking about Commercial Crew today. In addition to that, SLS and Orion are in the middle of their development activity. Very significant, and the technology that's needed to take us to Mars is all being developed in parallel with that. So never before in the history of human spaceflight has there been so much going on all at once. I think there's more opportunities within our grasp to explore as well than ever before. Asteroids, cislunar space, Mars, Europa, and on, places where we have the capabilities within our reach to explore. NASA is leading the world on a path of seeing and visiting places we didn't even know were there 100 years ago. And Boeing is certainly honored to be a part of that. We're also incredibly excited to be partnered with NASA on Commercial Crew. As I mentioned, I think Commercial Crew is incredibly important to the space station. It's important to reduce the cost of transportation to low Earth orbit so that NASA has within its budget the capability to develop means to explore beyond low Earth orbit. And importantly, I think it's beginning a whole new industry. Boeing this year is beginning the celebration of our 100th year as a company. And if you look back on our history 100 years ago, Bill Boeing founded the company with a focus on flying airmail and eventually establishing commercial air transportation through United Airlines. If you look at the company today, the commercial airplane division of the company is nearly a $70 billion a year business. I believe firmly that when the company celebrates its second 100 years, there'll be a division of Boeing that's building commercial space vehicles that will be of that magnitude, of that size. People didn't necessarily appreciate where we were going with commercial airplanes 100 years ago. It's maybe not real clear where commercial space is going today, but I believe firmly that we're on a path that will be of the magnitude that the commercial aviation industry started on 100 years ago. We're making great progress on the program that we initiated back in September. The first two milestones are complete on schedule. Kathy mentioned the certification baseline review. So we've gone through the process of laying out and agreeing with NASA the activities that we will go through to certify that the system is ready to carry crew. We completed the ground segment critical design review. So this was a review of the ops systems, the mission ops systems, the control center, the training systems, including the trainers, simulators, and ground software that will be used to plan, train, and fly the crew. Notably, I'll mention that the Flight Operations Directorate here at JSC is our partner in working with us to develop those systems, and so we're tapping into that knowledge and that experience base as we're moving forward. We started construction on the crew access tower on the Atlas V launch pad. That will be assembled in between the launches that happen on Atlas V. By the way, the 52nd successful Atlas V mission flew a week or so ago. Our orbital flight test, which is the uncrewed flight to station, will be the 74th Atlas V mission, and the crewed flight test will be the 80th Atlas V mission. So we've got those flights on the manifest, which is exciting. The remodeling and modernization of OPF-3 at the Kennedy Space Center, which will be the manufacturing facility, is continuing and is making great progress. The hardware is being delivered next month that will form the structural test article for the vehicle. And then later this year, the hardware will be delivered that will be part of the crewed flight test vehicle. And so we'll be assembling the first piece of the actual flight hardware. The team is working hard to finish the design. We're going through a very rigorous design process where we've decomposed the requirements. We're laying out the certification plans to verify those requirements, following a process very similar to the process that we followed for Space Shuttle, Space Station, and other commercial programs that Boeing's involved in, such as commercial airplanes and commercial satellites. All that leads to a critical design review in March, which will pot the design so that we can move full bore into manufacturing. The flight software will be delivered later this summer. We'll have the simulator running, based with the flight software running in flight computers, and 26 of the 34 flight displays will be a part of that. And so there'll be a real opportunity for the crew to interface with that software and understand how the vehicle is going to operate. We're on track for a pad abort test in February of 2017, where we'll fully check out the abort system, an orbital flight test in April of 17, which will be an uncrewed flight that will go to space station, and finally the crewed flight tests, which will have one Boeing test pilot, one NASA astronaut in July of 17. The first services mission then will begin in December of 17. So lots of great progress. We're on track, and it's just as exciting as can be to be a part of it. Thanks for having me here today. I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you very much. Here to tell us more about the Crew Dragon and SpaceX's crew transportation system is President and Chief Operating Officer at SpaceX, Gwen Shotwell.
So I can't tell you how happy I am and pleased to be here talking publicly now about our crew program. We have been in kind of a quiet mode, which is unusual for SpaceX, for over a year. But thrilled to be here, thrilled to talk about my crew version of Dragon and finally bringing crew transport back to American soil. Our Crew Dragon leverages the cargo capability that we've been flying successfully to the International Space Station. In fact, we have a Dragon on station right now. However, we understand, and we've been told, that crew is clearly different. So there's a number of upgrades that we've been working for the past few years to ensure that this crew version of Dragon is as reliable as it could possibly be. And ultimately, we plan for it to be the most reliable spaceship flying crew ever. Talk a little bit about these upgrades. The integrated launch abort system is critically important to us. We think it gives incredible safety features for a full abort all the way through ascent. It does also allow us the ultimate goal here of fully propulsive landing. Now, we won't be certifying the propulsive landing initially. We will be certifying the water landing with parachutes, but that vehicle will be prepared for fully propulsive landing, which I believe is in the best interest of the astronauts. I think we'd love to see these cargo vehicles land right here at Ellington Field. I think that's great. There's other reliability upgrades that we're working on, both the Falcon 9 and the Dragon, to ensure that this vehicle is the safest one possibly that we can design. As far as accomplishments go, other than normal and regular operations on the cargo vehicle of Dragon, flying lots of Falcon 9 missions to get very comfortable with that. We should fly over 50 Falcon 9 missions prior to putting a crew atop that vehicle. We did complete the certification baseline review in December of this past year. We just completed, or largely completed, the build of the pad abort system. Took us quite a while to get there, but there's a lot of great technology and innovations in that pad abort vehicle. I apologize for not having a photo here. I was trying to bring one in, but we'll probably tweet it out or put it online today. That pad abort test will be upcoming here in the next month or so from Cape Canaveral. Very excited about that. We've got an in-flight abort to test the highest dynamic regime of this crew capsule and the Falcon 9 system later this year. We've got a few environmental hurdles to get through before we fly that, but that should be later this year. As far as the overall program goes, flight test program, we anticipate doing our uncrewed mission to the International Space Station on this upgraded crew vehicle later in 2016, and shortly followed thereafter with our crewed flight in early 2017, as shortly as we can make it, and still maintaining, obviously, reliability and safety being key. So that's a top-level summary of our program. I want to make sure I give you the time for Q&A, but I do want to close with one final statement, and I say this as often as I can. For those of you that have known SpaceX for years, you'll hopefully notice that we would not be the company that we are today without the guidance and the partnership that we have had with NASA, and we certainly understand the incredible, I don't want to say burden, it's not burden, the incredible responsibility that we've been given to build the systems necessary and capable of flying crew. So thanks very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. We're here at the home base of the astronauts, and joining us today is Mike Fink, who has logged more than a year in space during 3 missions, including as commander of Expedition 18. He is the astronaut liaison to the Commercial Crew Program.
Good morning and welcome again to Johnson Space Center, NASA's Center for Human Spaceflight. And it's a huge honor for me to represent one of the finest space operations teams on the planet or off the planet, including my fellow astronauts. There's not another group on this planet or off this planet that wants the success of the Commercial Crew Program more than we do. We've been part of the team, we've been embedded with the Commercial Crew team since the very beginning. We have badges, we walk the floors of Boeing and SpaceX, and we add our experience with spaceflight, our experience with flying and testing new vehicles, and we think that we are a value added to the entire Commercial Crew Program, and we're always keeping our eyes on safety. So we, NASA, and our international partners have a wonderful, beautiful, magnificent, I'm biased, I love our space station, and it produces great science, 16 orbits each day. And like has been said before, the Commercial Crew Program will enhance space station science and operational flexibility. And these next several years, as you heard, our plans are full of hard work as well as excitement. And it's a great time to be part of the American space program on our way to Mars. Thank you. I think I'm about to get fired. Charlie wanted to hear more of that.
Thank you all. We'll now take questions from those in the room, on the phone, and submitting using the hashtag AskNASA. Please identify yourself by name and affiliation and indicate to whom your question is directed. Please ask only one question each to allow everyone the opportunity to get their questions answered. If you're in the room, please signal me, wait, and then stand up when you are asking your question. We'll get started with Eric Berger, Houston Chronicle.
Hi, Eric Berger with the Houston Chronicle. I guess question maybe for Kathy, but what is the timeline for NASA to pick the first provider of the Commercial Crew, the actual delivery of NASA astronauts? My understanding that you're going to pick 2 missions for the first go, and that decision may come as soon as the summer?
So there's a minimum. We had a minimum on the contract. So there's a minimum of 2 missions and up to 6 missions on the contract. The first mission that we will be looking at ATPing is actually right now a Boeing mission, just because of the differences in lead time and the need to be able to start having services in late 2017, 2018 timeframe. We know that we're going to have to start beginning the process to ATP our missions.
Mark?
Thank you, Mark Carreau for Aviation Week. And I have a financial question. I guess it's for Kathy. Could you tell us how much of the contracts has been released to Boeing and SpaceX so far to pursue their development?
You know, right now, Boeing's accomplished 2 milestones, and SpaceX has accomplished their first milestone. And overall, you know, when we go through the whole development activities and all the fundings that's going to be there, we'll have invested about $5 billion in development funding. In addition, when you looked at the pricing for the missions that we looked across the 5 years that we have not to exceed pricing for, we were able to also get an average seat cost of about $58 million per seat.
Andrea Watkins with Fox 26 News. I have a question about the the future of commercial crew. John Elman mentioned this, but we think of astronauts as coming up through NASA, being trained through NASA, and in this next 100 years of commercial crew, is this going to be, are private companies just going to be putting people on these rockets and launching them? I mean, tell me what that new industry looks like.
So it's a challenge to precisely have a vision of what it will look like. If you asked the aviation industry what it was going to look like in 1916, I doubt anybody would been able to describe what it looks like today. It's clear, though, that it will grow. I don't know if your question was centered around the fact that I said we'd have a Boeing test pilot and a NASA astronaut. That's kind of common for us in any new vehicles that we release and put through a test program, is that we would have a Boeing test pilot be a part of that activity. I think, though, that as the commercial industry in low Earth orbit matures, there will be all kinds of people traveling to low Earth orbit. So get that going.
Let me add one thing, and it's because I want to try to add some consistency to what we say. You heard me mention several times that we're about going to Mars, and I think every single one of us on this podium understands that that's the horizon goal for the nation, for our international partners, and everybody. We came to the conclusion that there was no way in the world NASA was going to be able to do deep space exploration if we were, I'll go back to one of Gwen's terms in it, and I know what she meant, if we were burdened with the responsibility of getting things and people to low Earth orbit. And so we made the conscious decision that if we're going to go to deep space, we need to turn over things that we are relatively sure we know how to do, access to low Earth orbit to American industry. And that's what we've done. You can see it. It's successful with cargo. You can see its resilience. You can see the justification, if you will, or the vindication of selecting two providers. Because although Orbital Sciences had an unfortunate accident, we're still flying cargo missions with SpaceX, and they're stepping in. 2024 was not just a random date. It actually gives us 10 years. It gives us a decade to do what you're alluding to allow industry to demonstrate that they have a good business plan, and to allow the nation and the world to demonstrate that people really do want to go to space. And so there will be people who go for days at a time, people who go for hours at a time through suborbital flight. That's the vision, and the world of low Earth orbit belongs to industry. It doesn't belong to the government. It doesn't belong to NASA at all. And ideally in 2024 or sometime shortly after that, when we've gotten all the juice out of the International Space Station that we can get, and we no longer need it for the research to go to Mars, we're going to take it apart and deorbit it. And at that time, there will still be platforms up there. Look down the row and you'll see a thing that's got Bigelow on the side. I'm seriously, look right down there. Everybody, look down there. Okay, you need to understand where we're going. Put it in, you gotta understand the whole big picture. And I apologize for rambling here, but a Bigelow module may be the next thing that begins to replace some of the functions of the International Space Station. We figure that 10 years is a good enough time. If I look at Gwen and John, hopefully they'll say, yeah, that's all we need. We need 10 years to prove ourselves, and then we got it. Low Earth orbit infrastructure belongs to industry. In the meantime, we're out in cislunar space, and you're going to start to see us build up an infrastructure in cislunar space, what we call the proving ground, because eventually, hopefully in the 2030s, some of these folk who are still deciding they want to be around, and my granddaughters, are going to be heading off to the red planet. And if we don't have a viable, vibrant low Earth orbit infrastructure supported by them, we're not getting there. So that's the critical importance of what we're talking about today, okay?
One of the things we're excited about is some of the things that we're learning on the International Space Station, and how other industries may be interested in the future in doing their own independent research, on another lab that would be a non-NASA lab. So we do research on advanced materials, and people are already looking at applying that to building buildings on Earth that might be able to withstand earthquakes better, for example. We do research on bacteria and look at the change in the immune part of that and how virulent they are, and there are pharmaceutical companies that are interested in vaccines. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing on ISS now that we hope will lead to more and more activity in low Earth orbit and by non-NASA customers. And then, as Charlie said, we move on and continue to do space exploration.
Stephen?
Thanks. Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now. A question for the two providers. Can you talk about where you come in on price per seat if you're carrying 4 crew compared to the Soyuz prices, which is roughly $70 million under the last contract? Thanks.
You talking about? So the Dragon capsule was designed for 7 crew members. The NASA requirement is 4 crew members plus cargo. I think we can actually fly 5 crew and still meet the NASA cargo complement. And our pricing is not substantially different from our cargo program.
Less than.
Robert?
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. With regards to crew and preparing for 2017 flights, when do you need to make crew selections? And for training, how do you, what are the different approaches between SpaceX and Boeing? Are you training here at JSC or training at your own facilities? Thanks.
Well, I can talk to you a little bit about the first one. I think what the astronaut office plans to do is kind of look at naming a small cadre of people that would be following both of these companies and be looking at starting into understanding what the training is like and all of that kind of thing. And from that cadre would later on then start to select the first crew. So I don't see the actual individuals being selected immediately, but probably before too long, a small cadre of folks out of the office will be named.
I'll just address the training aspects. We will have a mission simulator that will be here at JSC, and it's actually in the same footprint that the shuttle training simulator was in. There'll be an ingress-egress simulator that will be here as well. There'll be a water egress simulator that will be over in the neutral buoyancy lab, and we'll have some part task simulators here. As I mentioned, the Flight Ops Directorate is doing our mission planning and training, and so that will be located here at JSC, and they'll be involved with the crew here as well.
Our plan, I believe, is to follow a similar approach to cargo, where it's hybrid. We'll have simulators and capabilities here, as well as back in Hawthorne. We do want Dragon to be an extraordinarily easy vehicle to operate, but obviously, crew needs to be fully comfortable and fully capable of doing what's necessary to maintain safety.
We'll take one more question in the room and then go to the phone.
Kevin Quinn from KTRK here in Houston. For those who don't know, these vehicles, will they be used for different purposes, or ultimately is the goal to choose one over the other? And secondary question maybe to Administrator Bolden, if you can talk please about the end of the reliance specifically on the Russians and how important that is.
You want to go first? Yeah, the first.
Yeah. So let me answer the first part of it real quick. Our goal is to have 2 robust providers. So, you know, right now we are looking at a standard crew size of being 4 crew members with additional cargo. That doesn't mean that over time, new durations, new missions may come up, and then we would be working with our providers to be able to support those activities. But we really see the huge benefit in having 2 robust providers providing crew transportation to the International Space Station.
And in terms of reliance on the Russians, you've heard me say it over and over and over. I don't ever want to have to write another check to Roscosmos, you know, after 2017, hopefully. And so that's why I'm looking to John and Gwen to deliver. And so you've heard both of them say they think they'll be flying by 2017. If we can make that date, I'm a happy camper. All right?
Great. We'll go to the phone lines. I believe Marcia Dunn from the AP is on the line. Marcia, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. For Ms. Shotwell, I'm wondering if you could discuss the number and makeup of your first crew test flight. Boeing will have a Boeing test pilot and an astronaut. What about SpaceX's first flight to the space station?
We're still working through that first test flight, and we're obviously going to follow NASA's lead on this. Originally, in the program, a few years ago, it was to only be the partners' astronauts, and then I think it evolved to no, only NASA astronauts. And so I think what we're trying to do is figure out what's the right balance of NASA and SpaceX crew.
Great. Next, Irene Klotz from Reuters.
Hi, thanks very much. I have a question for Gwen. You mentioned you expect to have flown the Falcon 50 times before a crew is aboard. In light of the settlement you reached with the Air Force last week, can you tell us how many of those missions you think SpaceX might be able to compete for the military flights? And also for Kathy, could you please clarify the $58 million average price you gave to Mark Crew? The question if you can separate out the SpaceX and the Boeing prices, since there was quite a discrepancy in the awards. Thanks.
Hi, Irene. So much of the agreement between the Air Force and SpaceX remains embargoed, and orange is not going to be the new black for Shotwell. So I can tell you that we did not anticipate a huge number of Air Force missions in my 50 flight assessment prior to flying crew. But we were obviously pleased with the outcome of the discussions.
So Irene, let me clarify the 58 million. So we knew the first question everybody was going to ask is, how does your price per seat compare to the Russian price per seat, right? Same question that John and Gwen got. To get us ready for that, what you have to realize is we didn't really get per seat pricing, we got mission pricing. And each of the providers had a unique capability that they offered to us with that pricing. So that price per seat's a derived price per seat that looks at what's the average mission price over, the 5 years of ordering, and then basically is a quantification of then what would that end up being, including the cargo in there, an average price per seat. So if anyone's planning on going and mapping that back to an individual pricing, that's not our intent. It's really just to show you how industry has really stepped up and provided NASA with a cost-effective solution to flying crew to the International Space Station.
Great. Thank you. Bill Harwood from CBS.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much. A question for Gwen Shotwell. It's my understanding Boeing is planning to use NASA's mission ops personnel and infrastructure, JSC, for what you might call mission control during ascent, rendezvous, and entry. How is SpaceX going to manage that, and what role will NASA have in those mission control class kind of procedures? Thanks.
So we're currently operating the Dragon and Falcon 9 through SpaceX Mission Control with a tight link to MCC Houston here. And I believe our crew program will be an evolution of that to ensure safety. But I anticipate SpaceX having its control rooms and control centers, JSC, and the astronaut office having its control center, and obviously incredibly tightly linked on that.
And Miriam Kramer from space.com.
Hi, thanks so much. My question is
Miriam, can you hang on just a second? We can't hear you. If you're on the phone, could you please put your phone on mute unless you're asking the question? We're getting some feedback on the stage. Miriam, do you want to try again?
Hi. It's better.
It's not us.
So my question is for Administrator Bolden, and I'm wondering, anticipation of the President's budget announcement next week, are you feeling optimistic
Oh, am I feeling optimistic about the 2016 budget for Commercial Crew? I don't know how Mike Fink got that, but yes, I'm feeling very optimistic. And in fact, you know, in my remarks, I tried to give credit where credit is due. The Congress has, I think, kind of started to understand the critical importance of commercial crew and cargo. They've seen, as a result of the performance of our providers, that this is not a hoax. It's not a myth. It's not a dream. It's something that really is happening. And I am optimistic that the Congress will accept the President's proposal for Commercial Crew for 2016.
We'll now take a couple questions from Ask NASA. I believe Megan will ask them. She'll need the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question on Twitter from World. Are any of these vehicles reusable for crewed flight?
So the CST-100 capsule is designed to be used 10 times, and so we will recover it and refurbish it in the facility at KSC and fly it again. So the design requirement is 10 flights.
SpaceX's Dragon is also fully reusable. I think our design requirement is higher, but obviously we want to fly them, bring them back, fully test them, and fly them again. This pad abort vehicle that we're building and shipping imminently to the Cape, we hope to reuse as well. So we should see that upcoming very shortly, the reusability of Dragon.
Great. Also from Kevin Myers, how does NASA see its partnership unfolding with private partners on the path to Mars? Is SpaceX going on its own or with NASA?
I think it's going to take a village, frankly, to get to Mars. And I think there's lots of participants who are very excited and are working on ways to do that. I'm sure it's going to be a collaborative effort.
Great. And then from Freedrift, will Commercial Crew mission to space station be similar to Soyuz mission in terms of time?
The mission ops profile that we've laid out is very similar. We are planning for a first day rendezvous. The capsule will then stay connected to station for 6 months as a lifeboat, and then leave station and land within 5 to 6 hours. So it's a very similar profile to Soyuz.
We'll answer a question from online. Stephanie?
Hi, Amy Green from WMFE would like to know, will S&C's failed GAO challenge change the company's involvement in the Commercial Crew program in any way? And does the company plan to continue participating? Does it have funding to do that?
So we still consider Sierra Nevada a valued partner to us. We still have an ongoing Space Act agreement with them to continue to mature the design of the Dream Chaser. And we still continue to have a milestone with them for them to do their second drop test.
And then one from the SpaceX Reddit user community. They want to know, does SpaceX currently intend to use a reused first stage or new core for the in-flight abort test?
It was one of the stages that we intended to do our reusability demonstrations, similar to the systems that you saw us fly in McGregor. But I believe for the in-flight abort, it's actually the first flight of that vehicle.
I think we have one more question in the room. Eric, did you have a question?
Thanks for the follow-up. Question for Mr. Bolden. So last May, you were taking an incredible amount of heat from Congress about Russians, and there were lots of questions about their ability to be a good partner. Clearly, in the last 6, 7, 8 months, they have stepped up and been reliable. I mean, we've gotten their people have gotten our people to this station. My question is, what has their reaction been to sort of this Launch America campaign? Obviously, they knew it was coming, but you say you never want to write another check to Roscosmos, but sort of how does that sort of set the partnership, in going ahead? We're not going to be writing checks to them. Are they still kind of happy with the partnership? How do they feel kind of about this? We're going to get our own people to the station from now on sort of sentiment.
Yeah, I can't answer for Roscosmos, but I think if you were to talk to them, they've been involved with us all along. They understand the critical importance of having redundancy and getting crew to orbit. If you ask me, I think they're going to be perfectly happy that we have a capability to get crews to orbit on a number of different vehicles. And I think Kathy will tell you our intent is to fly mixed crews. My preference would be that everybody goes to station on one of these two vehicles. That would be my intent. But again, let me take you back to Mars. And Gwen alluded to it. Everybody wants to see competition. Going to Mars is hard. Let me say that one more time. Going to Mars is hard. Everybody on this stage, I think, realizes nobody is going to do it by themselves. We have an incredible international partner team that's working. When you see us fly, I think EM1, I don't want to see which one, but I think EM1 has the European service module. We are looking long range at EM, that's right. Okay, so I have to ask people who know. But I think you're going to find there's more and more involvement from partners. And partners doesn't just mean international. It means commercial, it means international, it means academia, and it means citizen scientists. Takes a lot of stuff to get off this planet, and really a lot of stuff to get to Mars. So that's the ultimate destination. And Eric, I think you're going to find that from all of our meetings to date, everybody's excited about going beyond deep space, beyond low Earth orbit and into deep space.
Thanks to everyone for joining us today. That's all the time we have. It's great to see the excitement everyone has for the Commercial Crew Program and for the systems that Boeing and SpaceX are developing to carry astronauts from the United States to and from the International Space Station. You can continue to follow all of the developments in the Commercial Crew Program at www.nasa.gov/commercialcrew and aboard the International Space Station at nasa.gov/station. And to find out when you can see the International Space Station fly over your home, go to spotthestation.nasa.gov. Thank you.